We're also going to have another great talk by Mike Wang, who is going to talk to us about what's next in MIS.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Coy. What an amazing meeting. Congratulations, Eric. Can I see a show of hands? Who in the room is under the age of 40? All right. This is a good time to be you. I'm envious because the future is very bright if you're in the MIS realm. So here's the thing. Why even talk about stuff like this? Well, spine care is super important. The amount of suffering is immense. There's so much need to improve on what we do, even though what we do is so amazing even today. Now, I just kind of took a brief look at what's going on around the world about the people we care about on social media. It seems like everybody's got a spine problem, right? Elon Musk, right? Adele, Sly Stallone just had a problem. Carson Daly, all these people are having spine surgeries, and we need to provide people like that, VIPs like that, even better care in the future. So where are the advances going to come? I mean, they're almost limitless, but I'm going to go over these 9 basic areas that I think are very, very critical: surgical orientation and visualization, advanced sensing, automation, motion preservation, biologics, predictive analytics and big data, risk amortization in surgery, cost reduction, and training. There are many more. I trust you can believe that. So visualization, this is the most basic first step. It's obvious that we all use visual aids in a standard surgery, microscope, loops, whatnot. And if you can't see, you can't operate, right? 90% of all the sensory input that's coming into you is visual, right? We're visual creatures, right? So understanding what that means for your level of comfort, for your level of understanding of what's happening in an operation is critical. But up until now, we were technologically limited by basic lighting and magnification. Think beyond the light spectrum we use today. Think if you could see into other wavelengths of light that would give you additional information. Simplest is infrared and ultraviolet, right? Think about what that means in terms of understanding tissue and what is ahead of you and what you're dealing with at that time. And this is already coming. Telegen launched last year. This is now a digital age. Prior to this, all devices that were dealing with visualization were essentially analog devices. Now we have the ability to not only have the digital image, but to reformat and reorient and change that image. And in the future, what you're going to see is you're going to see laser light modification of what you see. There's a lot of ways to look at a thing, right? It changes. Right now, the whole room is blue, right? We could change it to red, have a different feel. In surgery, it doesn't matter if you're looking at a blood vessel, a nerve, intestine, whatever, right? So second, this is similar, but it's slightly different. Advanced sensing. Think about what it's like when you're doing surgery. All of those puckering moments are when you don't know what's around the corner, right? We have this in our cars now. Our cars know where things are to help avoid accidents. Here is the simplest level of analysis. This is a great Japanese paper. We heard a lot of great talks. Wang gave a great talk about lateral. Everything in the front of the body is important. If we could just see ahead with ultrasound, around the corner is going to be the kidney, is going to be the aorta. Think about the fact that ultrasound off the shelf is now at sub-millimeter level. So in other words, sub-millimeter ultrasound is done endovascularly by our colleagues in cranial surgery. This is coming. If you tie that together with concepts of affective and effector mechanisms, you get the ability to have control of surgery. So in other words, advanced sensing, this is a very pedestrian movie about someone doing the drilling of the eggshell like they do at the Midas Rex course, and stopping because the drill can detect the impedance, the physical change that's going to happen before your hand or your eyes can do it. We know people are doing this. Medtronic has a great program on this right now. How do you put in burr holes? How do you take the lamina off and not plunge and tear the dura? All of those things are coming to us, okay? Third, automation. This goes without saying. We know that this is the age of robotics, but look at it differently, right? Look at it as an occupational hazard to do surgery, right? Expanding your career lifespan and getting you to be better at what you do. We've heard enough about single or prone lateral, all that. This is the earliest deleveraging with robotics. This is the very, very pedestrian step of that. This is a great picture showing Timur Yurikov, one of my partners, doing a very complicated surgery and having the ability to see and plan ahead and then execute with the robot on what he's going to do, right? We've taken this farther, doing endoscopic assisted localization, drilling control. These are all things we're putting together, merging these technologies so that we can put the best parts of everything on offer together, right? Now, robots go way beyond that. If you think about the surgery on the left and the surgery on the right, okay? There's some orthopods here, I think, right? I don't even know what surgery that is, but it looks medieval. Okay, but it's a surgery, right? And it requires a lot of force. I'm sorry it's so loud. And this, oh, no, not too loud, sorry. And then look at the surgery on the left, dissecting the fissure. You have to be able to do one, then the next. For the general people here, you're doing an aneurysm clipping, then you're doing a T10 to pelvis, right? So understand that the human, sorry, it keeps going, dynamic range is limited, right? And you can be fatigued. So robots deleverage all of this for you and get you there with automation. Now, motion preservation. I know this is going to be kind of a taboo topic, right? Because I put up 3 devices that were in the past that were very popular and had now been taken off the market. But that doesn't mean there's not a future in this. We all know that motion preservation has a role. And I'm going to go back to, Juan was talking about Luis Pimenta. Luis published this paper on the lateral disc replacement. And this paper was important because he opened our minds to the idea that just because it's a disc arthroplasty doesn't mean you need an exposure surgeon to completely move the peritoneal sac. You could do this kind of surgery through the XLIF approach. And this paper is 15 years old, maybe 20 years old almost. And I don't know if Luis is here or not, but the ability to do these things, think about what's coming. Here's another device that kind of saw its day, but is going to come back around. Zyga, facet resurfacing. Think about if you could resurface facets and implant these. These are all going to be minimally invasive surgeries in the future, right? Biologics. This is too obvious, right? The ability to have a role in regenerating the spinal column is really, really important, right? This is a great picture from the Vacanti group in Boston. It captured people's imaginations about the Frankenstein organs and how we could just manufacture these organs. But we have already come a long ways. We take for granted that BMP is a genetically engineered product that's been available for over 20 years, and it is amazing. It is a huge step in the right direction to the idea that we can actually manufacture components that are biologic, not just mechanical, and use them in the body. And this is a great paper it's almost 20 years old now, of them rebuilding a jaw inside a human's back. They just basically put BMP sponges inside a metal scaffold and built a human a new jaw. And they inserted it, and he was chewing food after that. It's amazing what is coming to us, right? And our understanding of collagen, our understanding of disc material, these basic biologic elements of understanding what the human spine is besides a place to put a bunch of screws in is going to be the minimally invasive realm of early intervention and application. So nobody's going to want to do a big surgery to put in some product. We're going to be doing that. And we have to be careful that we keep control of this and this does not end up with pain management. Predictive analytics. This is another super, super ripe area. Epic and Cerner both understand their business model is not only software, but they own the data that you're entering every day. Some people entering right now into Epic, right? Information to train the AI, right? Well, how do we make decisions about what surgery to do? Intelligent decision-making, and combining these very different facets of what goes into the decision-making for surgery, right? So I like to show this slide, the cost of surgery, and I said, wow, 2002, I'm going to bend that cost. And then 2012, I'm showing this slide saying, look, I'm going to bend that cost down. I'm going to prove it to you with the Awake Fusion, right? And then here is a slide from John Yoon, one of our former fellows. He was at Penn looking at cell phone data and analyzing the granular level of what's happening to a patient. Can you predict a person who's failing and developing a non-union early before you ever get an x-ray, right? Yes, you can, because there's something called phenotyping. There's motion phenotyping, which John's been doing beautifully at UPenn. Amortizational risk. This is an area that I get very excited about. How do you take a surgery like Jay showed some amazing surgeries, break that down so it's digestible, right? You don't need to swallow all the calculus in one day. It took you a year. Why do you need to swallow a T4 to pelvis in 30 minutes or an hour, 3 hours? Why can you not distribute that over time? And I love to talk about Awake Fusion. I'm not going to bore you with this video. You've all seen it before. But the idea is if you change the experience of an operation and you could divide a big operation into pieces, maybe you could do something very, very different to that patient. You could actually generate an acceptable and real structural rebuild of the spine. And we started to go there already. This is a 2-level OptiMesh percutaneous spinology case with, basically minimal impact to the patient, but deformity corrected. But what if we go into the AL sectioning as I've been talking about? What if we do all of this and we could amortize that over time and distribute the risk and do all of that in a different way? Cost reduction, this is where MIS wins yet again, but we're going to have to prove it. We're going to have to measure it. Variation in practice is the key. This is from the late Clint Devon, showing the variability in terms of practice in his hospital between the surgeons. This is what the payers and government are coming for. So variation, MIS, helps to compartmentalize that. Finally, surgical training. This is an advertisement for a fellowship in New York City. This is important because what this statement is if you're a neurosurgeon, we'll take you into fellowship. If you're an orthopedic surgeon, we're only going to take you if you already did a fellowship. Okay? Now, I'm not indicting our orthopedic colleagues. What I'm saying is at one point, ortho and neuro has to come together to understand what it is to train people that do such complicated surgeries that we all do every day. So congratulations again, Eric. Amazing meeting, fantastic time in Vegas. And thanks for all of you to support Spine Section. It's been great.